Hey everybody, welcome back to Stoker Review and happy St. Patrick's Day. And for this review, I'm doing the Cuban Bolivar Belicoso Fino. Established in 1901, the Bolivar cigar line has become one of the most popular cigar lines coming out of Cuba today. It's considered one of their powerhouse lines, even though in America we probably wouldn't consider it a very powerful cigar because we're used to mainly Nicaraguan tobacco and some Honduran tobaccos. But in terms of other Cuban brands, this is considered one of the more big powerhouses of all the different lines. And one of the most popular Vitolas in the Bolivar line is the Belicoso Fino. See if we'll focus in. And this sample that I have here came from a box with a box code of ULA December 2013. So this is a relatively young cigar for a Cuban cigar. Let's take a look at this cigar here. It's not a bad looking stick. Look at the cap there, pretty well done, and the foot there looks pretty good. Now let's check eye advantage and let's see. They say that Belicoso Fino is 5.5 inches by 52 ring gauge, and it comes in two different boxes. They have the regular box, like what we're used to, is a box of 25 for $218. A sliding lid box would be $199 for a box of 25 as well. So it's one of the better priced cigars in the Cuban market. Now this cigar, I've had it quite a few times over the years, but I've always had it, you know, with at least 5 years of age on them. They just age really well, and like most Cubans, I let them sit for probably a very minimum of 3 years. Usually 5. Usually that's when I usually will go back and revisit them on the 5-year mark. Well, I've been trying to want to check out some of these cigar lines new and kind of smoke them newer, and then, you know, go back to them every other year or so and check to see how they're aging and see what really changes on them. So I know what this cigar should be like when it's well aged. So with this one being new as it is, relatively young, curious to see what the change will be in the cigar. So let's go ahead and cut the cap here and check the draw out. For several years, the quality control of a lot of Cubans was really poor. You would either get, you know, wrappers that look like crap, but mainly you got either overfilled or underfilled cigars, and the draws were usually horrible. Most of the time, the most common thing was you would get a draw that was just impossible. You could not draw through the cigar at all. But then other times, you would get a cigar that was loosely filled, kind of spongy, just not very well made. Well, lately they've been focusing more on quality control, so you don't see that much as you used to. But still, considering they don't really age tobacco like, you know, we're used to with, you know, Dominican, Honduran, Nicaraguan cigars, stuff like that, it's really advantageous to let these cigars age for several years before you go back and touch them. Like I said, a lot of these cigars, you can smoke them new, but you really get the full, you kind of get the everything you can out of tobacco if you just let it age a little while. It gets a little, you know, you get more complexity out of it because the power dies down a little bit. It gets a little bit more, you know, softer and just more well-rounded. So I'm curious to see how this little powerhouse compares. So anyway, the draw is a tad bit tight, but it's not bad at all. I don't think it's going to be a problem smoking it, but it's a little bit tighter than what I would like. Of course, being a pyramid, I could probably cut a little bit more off, but I don't want to risk it messing up the the wrapper itself. But on the cold draw, I get a very strong cedar note on it, and it's almost like a little fruity, like kind of like dark fruits. But mainly it's pretty strong cedar note on it. So let's light it up. Like I said, this is going to be pretty interesting for me because I don't usually like smoking these cigars this young, but I know it's done quite often. I know a lot of people like them younger just because they have a little more strength to them, a little more powerful. If they have the strength, they'll be the strongest the newer they are. Oh. From the beginning, you get that strong cedar note. That's definite. It also has like a nice red pepper spice about it too. That's not really too strong, but you can taste it, and it's got a little bit of that ting on the back of the palate. It's salty. I get a little bit of saltiness out of it. And it's almost like a little bit of leather. There also is a slight sweetness to it also, that I'm getting right off the bat on this cigar. I can see the sweetness is ramping up a little bit as it goes in there. And this has a really nice room note to the cigar too. There's always one thing I liked about Bolivars. To me, they've always had a really nice... Bolivars and Monte Cristos are two that always seem to have a really nice room note about them. But so far, off to a pretty good start. So I'm going to smoke this at a halfway point, and I'll be back to let you know how it is. I'll see you in a second. Everybody, I'm back. About at the halfway point now. When I got to the halfway point, I still get that cedar and that red pepper spice note, but I'm also picking up almost like a hazelnut note or something like that. Kind of reminds me of like the hazelnut creamery for the coffee or whatever. Also, probably goes along with that is I get a nice creamy note too. It's subtle. I mean, it's there, but it's not real dominant. So, and I know that's actually something that gets a lot stronger in the more well-aged Bolivar Belicoso Finos, is they do have a nice creaminess about them that with this one I'm not getting that right now. And picking up, there's a little bit more body to this one I'm used to also. So it does have that strength there too, but right now I'm still getting a lot of cedar, red pepper, but now I'm also getting that kind of hazelnut flavor and a little bit of creaminess too. So far it's smoking really well. The ash actually just fell off from this thing. You see how far, I mean, it was a pretty nice size ash. It's burning really well. Construction's great on this cigar. So anyway, we'll finish this off, and I'll be back to let you know how it is. See you in a second. Everybody, I'm back. I'm at the end of the cigar now, and this is where I can tell the cigar is pretty young. That creaminess is pretty much died down. What I get a lot of now is that cedar note, but it's not really, it's more than cedar. It's almost like a charred wood note that I get, along with that red pepper, and it has a bitterness about it that came in the final third of it that is kind of strong. Now, I don't get that on these when are well aged. Actually, the final part of the cigar is one of the better parts actually on one that's more well aged. Usually what I get on one that has several years old, several years on it, is I get that creaminess throughout. I get that kind of that hazelnut type flavor. There's that sweetness about it that almost kind of reminds me of like a burnt sugar kind of a aspect, or something like it's on top of like a creme brulee or something like that. And I get a little bit of a nice sweet chocolate note as well that I don't get on this one at all young. I don't get that chocolate anywhere in this cigar. So even though I think this is a pretty good cigar now, I know that with a few years of age on this thing is spectacular. So just goes to show you that, even if you like these cigars now, if you just have the patience to sit them down, it'll really be worth your while, because they develop in such a better fashion. I mean, they become smoother, more complex. The flavors that you get later on, they're not even evident in the cigar when they're younger, but they're more powerful too. Like for me, this one has got more body to it than one that's more well aged as well. So it's a lot like, if you would age any other cigar from anywhere else. But for me, aging is almost a requirement for Cuban cigars. So if you ever pick some up, keep that in mind. If you're an international viewer, you pretty much know this, because you can get them at your local shop all the time. Some cigars are better young, or let me rephrase that. Some cigars you can smoke young and they get a lot better with age. Sometimes they don't take us on the age. Some cigars take a long time to age. For me, Cohiba is one. It takes a minimum of 5 years, usually about 8 years, and they become spectacular. Like, they become probably one of the best cigars you'll ever smoke in your life. At least in my view, that's the way it is. But you have to be patient. I give them about 8 to 9 years before I even touch any Cohibas that I have. So just keep that in mind. And if you're a U.S. viewer, if you go on a cruise ship or you go somewhere where you can get some at a reputable Cuban cigar shop or something like that, or a La Casa de la Habano or whatever, pick them up and see what you think. Get several of them and smoke them. Smoke one fresh or young or whatever, then smoke one a few years later, and then smoke them the last a few years more later, and you'll see the big difference in them. But anyway, just want to give you kind of a sampling of age versus not age on one of my favorite cigars, the Bolivar Belicoso Fino. And on that note, I'll see you next time.